Hi, I'm Matt Meyer. In this video series, we're going to take things a little bit differently. Instead of just showing different techniques on and off, I'm going to go through a series of development paths on how to create a generative application. Now, the scenario that we have is something that I am doing right now for my company. So this is an actual representation of something that we need to do for a company on a procedural path. This is going to be an automation style generative applications. So we are going to have various parts where humans are involved, where the AI is going to take over, where we need to go and grab information from somewhere else, where we're going to need to write information other places. So there's a number of different things that are going to go on. The architecture of this is going to be set up as a multi-app kind of, or a multi agent kind of an application. So we're going to have different personas perform different acts. Now, uh, when we start off on something like this, we don't just step into our development environment. The first thing we have to do is talk about the process and what we want to automate, map that out to make sure we have an idea of what we're going to do before we even step into our development environment. So let's go ahead and start with that. So what I have here is a flowchart of the process that we follow when we are doing an SOW draft. And really, you do need to have the process mapped out of what you're going to automate before you start to do anything. And this is more important than the actual development itself is knowing what you are going to develop and how you're going to put this stuff together. And a lot of times this will determine architecture as well. So what we have here is the process that we follow when we are doing an SOW draft. Now, there are a couple of things that occur over here before this start, because we are meeting with the client, we have scoping calls, we exchange files back and forth, that kind of thing that occurs here. So we'll either have supporting files either that we have created or the client has provided, or we won't. And so in that case, we kind of interview ourselves for the scope. After that, we come up and we define the problem statement. What is it that the client is trying to solve? What are we trying to do here? From that, we take our problem statement and we're going to find a top level scope and requirements. Requirements comes from our scoping calls and from the supporting files and other things, and just general, hey, I want a web page. Okay, these are the requirements of a basic web page. You need administrative area, you need the homepage, you need navigation, that kind of thing. So you're defining your top level scope and your requirements. From that, we go ahead and we start thinking of a solution. What does this look like? How are we going to build this? What is the architecture involved in this kind of thing? At this point, I'm normally creating an architecture document, something that either will describe the architecture or the solution, or something that is going to, in Visio, it's going to diagram out what that architecture is. Then what we do is we're going to refine our scope and our activities. So after taking a look at the solution, having a good idea of what the requirements, top level requirements are, we are going to then write out what the scope of this project is, what's in scope, what's out of scope, what are our functional requirements, our non-functional requirements, that kind of thing. And we're actually going to write that down. What we do next is we are going to define and create our epics. So now we are putting it into some form of a project. So this is the top level, website design, back end design, database design, that kind of thing. And we're estimating the effort we believe it's going to take to do that. This is where we're assigning complexity. This is where we talk about, okay, what is the UX going to look like, that kind of thing. And then we're going to define our timeline. And timeline ties back into what we've done with the client and the supporting files. We need to know when they want this done by. If we have a lot of time, that's really going to affect our work breakdown structure. We may have fewer people on the project if the timeline is very fast, or if we have a large project backlog or something like that. Or if we have a lot of people on the bench, it'll determine what we put down for our work breakdown structure. Now, work breakdown structure is going to be, I need an architect for 10 hours. I need 2 developers, 40 hours a week for the next 3 weeks. That kind of thing. I need a BA. I need these kind of people involved. So we'll break that down, and now we're creating the estimate based upon our scope and our work breakdown structure. This is highly This is difficult in the and very involved in the consulting world, because I may have a architect that is billed at a certain rate and a junior developer who's billed at a completely different rate. So that will affect what the overall price that I put forward to my client is going to be. After we get all this done, we have a solution, we've got a timeline, we've got a work breakdown structure, and we know what our people are. We will go ahead and create a level of effort presentation. And a level of effort of a presentation is our way of presenting to our clients and saying, this is what you have this is what you've given us, this is our problem statement, and this is what we believe it will take in order to complete that particular project. We give that to you, so we're not arguing back and forth on an SOW yet. We're talking about what is the project, what are the dollars involved in the project, that kind of thing. Gives that client a chance to say yes or no before we get into actual legal negotiations. So that's what we present first. And so now the client either accepts that. If they do, that is when we are actually drafting our SOW. After we draft our SOW, it goes through a review, and normally the review is with someone in management and in delivery to make sure that is going to match up with what we can do, and dollars and everything else, and that it matches legally. Now, normally what we do, and what most consulting companies do, is they have someone who is pretty well versed on how these things should look, but they don't necessarily have a legal mindset. All right, so that's something that we'll come back to here in a little bit. What happens here then is we submit that to signature, and then that's it. Either it gets signed or it doesn't. If the client does not accept, of course, we're done. Or actually, what happens is we go back here and do something else. So this is our process. So what we're going to do now is look at where can we automate, where are areas for automation. So what I want to do here is, if I have recordings of the client interaction, I can use those client recordings to then send it to an LLM to help to define a problem statement. I can also use those recordings in the supporting documents and things like that to define my top level scope and my requirements, because this is something that normally I do or somebody else does, and it takes a lot of time, but it's really about listening. It's really about reviewing what happened in those meetings and coming up with something. So I can have the LLM do that. So this is a good area here for automation. Next, solution design. I can have suggestions. So typically this is done by a human, but you can have suggestions made by the LLM to create the design. Or I can feed the design. I can have some sort of design documentation here in the supporting files and have a solution architect persona or something like that come up with a statement around it, and it creates the solution, either the solution diagram or the solution document. Refining scopes and activities. This is very much something that an LLM can do and do very well. So that is definitely ripe for automation. And then finally, the estimate, scopes, and effort. This is probably something we can get LLM help for, or AI help for, but this is more than likely something going to be done by a human. The timeline and the work breakdown structure, for sure, these are things that can be automated. The AI is going to have a good idea of what a work breakdown structure is going to be, and with a scope, it's going to have a really good idea of who needs to be working on that project. So again, all these areas we can get either help from and have a human oversee, or just outright have the AI do it. Creating the level of effort presentation. This is really something that I want our agent to do. I really want it to do this. This is very time consuming. We use a template, so it's going to be the same every time. I want to use Copilot or something to generate this from the information that I have, because this is something that again, if I've got to recreate this every time, this really takes us a long time, and it's not something that I really want to do every time. Client acceptance. I wish I could have somebody automate that, but no, that can't be done. But finally, here in the review area, drafting the SOW. If I have an SOW template and I have the LLM creating sections of that, I can probably have a pretty good draft of an SOW that then gets a review. Now I can have a human review this, which it will, but I can also have the LLM take on the persona of a legal representative and go ahead and take over the SOW review. So that's something that definitely I can have LLM help for, or automation. And then we can send it out for signature, and we go from there. So these are the areas for automation, and I'll mark up this particular file later on, but we're going to go over now what personas do I need inside of my application, inside of my agent. I've updated our diagram to now add the personas. So in the beginning, we're going to need a business analyst to take and create scope for us. Next, this will go to a solutions architect to design the solution, suggest solution for the human. And then we have a product owner and business analyst to collaborate to create the different epics, and then to create an estimate based upon that and define timelines. Next, we have a project manager and the product owner need to discuss to create the work breakdown structure, as well as to create the final estimate based upon that work breakdown structure. Next, we have the actual writing that goes on. So we want to create a level of effort presentation. This is going to be a technical writer who will do that. And then they will also draft the SOW when that is needed. Finally, you have the legal counsel that is going to review the SOW before signature. Now, each one of these corresponds with an agent that will need to be created. And each one of these agents needs to be independent of one another, but at the same time communicate with one another. This is the A to A philosophy. So my agents here, I'm going to have an agent that creates the files and scopes. So it's got to go out and grab the files, supporting files. If it doesn't have those supporting files, it needs to be able to interview for the scope. That is going to be our business analyst persona for this particular one. And the output of this particular agent is going to be our scope and requirements. Now, the output is something that's going to get passed to the next agent. So we have this stuff available. Next, our solutions architect. This is going to be, of course, our solutions architecture agent. And the output of this is going to be a solutions design, and I want a solutions design document, a physical document to be generated and placed in the team. Next, we have our product owner and analyst. That is going to be our project design agent. And again, it's going to take the information that we've got in these previous ones to output then a timeline and our epic backlog. From there, and this you can see I don't have anything red underneath that. This isn't generating anything. This is something that it's just keeping in memory and then passing on to the next. So after it does that, we need an agent that is going to do our project resources and estimate. Right, and the output of that is going to be our work breakdown structure and a physical document for our project estimate based upon the epics and work breakdown structure. Next, we have our document generation agent. This is going to be our technical writer. It's going to create that presentation and the draft of the SOW. All right, and then finally, we're going to have our legal presentation, our legal review agent, and all that is going to do is send us some recommendations for our SOW changes. Now, that'll either be updated by the human or it'll just be ignored, and we'll go ahead and sign forward. All right, so these are the various agents and outputs for our personas, and now I can start to take a look at what is the actual design of this application. Finally, what you'll do is to map out what each one of your agents is going to do. So here we have one of the more complex ones, the file and scoping agent, that's got to do several things. First of all, it has to gather the files that you're going to ingest into the agent for the scoping. And if you don't have that, then you need to have some sort of interview process that's going to ask questions about what you're doing. So what this looks like is we'll have it called first of all from the master agent. We'll have this agent being called. And you'll have some sort of start question, and the question is normally going to be, do you have any files or do you have a team? So if you have a team, you're going to pass that team name to a connector, the team's connector, and you'll get that validated from the team's list. You can do that by extracting the teams that the person is involved in and then doing a filter based upon that team name that they've given. Or if they don't have very many teams, you can also set up like an adaptive card where they're going to do a selection or something like that. What that does is you create and you validate that team. Once that team is validated, you'll pass it to a get channel, the same kind of thing. So the connector that's going to get the channels. What I like to do with that is I'm going to put that into an adaptive card. Once that adaptive card there is, then I can select the channel with in Copilot Studio. Once I have the channel and the team, what I'll do is I'll want to present that to the user as a list of files that they're going to ingest. How we do that is we do have I send that to Power Automate in an agent flow. And essentially, what that will do is I need to make a call to the Graph API in order to get the URL of the channel. Once I have the URL of the channel, I can split that apart to get a list files in SharePoint. Now, I am going to use the SharePoint connector here because I want to come in as the user. Security trimming is going to be important, and that is something that we need to consider, that we only give the user things that they actually have rights to. We don't want to be stepping over any security boundaries. So once we have the list of files, we're going to send that over to Copilot Studio, again, in some sort of adaptive card or some sort of selection criteria. Once those are selected, if I have any MP4s or video files that are in SharePoint, I'm going to send that to a function app to extract the VTT file. The VTT is the file that you're going to, it's the transcript file that you use to send and process. I'm going to process all those documents with Copilot, and then with the prompting that I give, I'll output scope, and that goes on to the master app, and then that gets followed on by the next applications, the next personas. So that's what this kind of looks like. So once I've got this for each one of my agents, I'm ready now to begin to start development. So that's what we'll do with my next episode. I hope you guys got something out of this, and I'll see you next time.